All right, y'all. I'm Lucas, and today I got kind of a fun, silly list for you. We're doing top 10 worst gimmicks in wrestling history. So first off, what exactly is a gimmick? A gimmick is the character you are playing as a wrestler, whether it be The Undertaker, okay? This brooding, dark figure, Dead Man, played by Mark Calloway. That's his persona, your in-ring persona, the character you're displaying to the audience. Now, a gimmick doesn't have to be as over the top as The Undertaker. It can be something as simple as, this person is a good, young, scrappy wrestler, like Daniel Bryan when he started. So the gimmick is your persona, your character. Some are great, like The Undertaker, and work, even though they're wild. And others, some of the ones we're going to look at today, simply just didn't work or were too bizarre, too strange, and some even controversial. So we'll get right into it. I'm first going to start off with some honorable mentions. There's a ton of bad gimmicks. I'm sure I'm going to miss some today. A lot of them in the 90s, in the 80s as well, early 2000s. They were just kind of throwing stuff at the wall. Was going to see if it stuck. So we're going to look at some of the honorable mentions or dishonorable mentions. So I'm going to put in this all occupational gimmicks. So a construction worker who wrestles, a trash man who wrestles, a repo man who wrestles. Yep, they did that one too. Repo guy, you know. So these were popular in the 80s and 90s when they, I don't know, maybe like, oh, if construction workers watch wrestling, they're going to see themselves on TV. I don't know what the thinking was behind it. So a lot of funny ones there. There was a Mountie, like the Canadian mounted police officers. They had one of those guys as a wrestler as well. So they're moonlighting as a wrestler almost. So all occupational gimmicks are pretty bad. We don't really see them nowadays at all. But yeah, all occupational ones definitely going in the dishonorable mentions category. Another one I have here is the, what's it called? The Max Moon. Okay, so Max Moon, I wasn't really aware of this guy, but when I was doing my research, I found him. He was this kind of colorful spacesuit wearing wrestler, and apparently he was from outer space, and he would come down and fight people because that's what aliens from outer space want to do, become professional wrestlers. So another one that's not great, used probably to sell toys to kids. So Max Moon up there. This next one in the dishonorable mentions category is Zeus. Okay, so Zeus, a formidable figure, looked like a wrestler, great look. But the reason I put him in here is because of why he was wrestling as the character he was. So in the late 80s, they had a movie called No Holds Barred, starring Hulk Hogan. In the movie, Hulk Hogan's character faces a wrestler, an evil wrestler named Zeus. And they decided to take the character from the movie, Zeus, and put him into actual live wrestling events to promote the movie. So kind of a technicality, but throwing movie characters in kind of, I don't know. It blurs the lines of kayfabe, and I don't know. Kind of takes away. So Zeus, dishonorable mention. Looked the part, but still, can't have movie characters in there. Now we'll get right into our top 10 worst. And number 10, we're going to go with another occupational one, but I decided to keep this one separate for the wrestler behind the gimmick. Number 10 is Dr. Isaac Yankem DDS. Yes, an evil dentist. If those of you are afraid of the dentist, I guess this was the perfect heel for you. So he was Jerry Lawler's personal dentist, and he would come out and they would torture people together and, I don't know, do all the evil dentist things. But the funny thing is that the man behind Dr. Isaac Yankem is Glenn Jacobs, also Kane. So the famous Kane, the devil's favorite demon, the Undertaker's brother, one of the most iconic wrestlers ever, was first an evil dentist. So that always cracked me up that he got his start as an evil dentist. Thankfully, they moved on and saw that he could do other things, more so than just being an evil dentist. So that's number 9. And number 10 is the Fat Chick Thriller, played by Mike Awesome, he's a decent wrestler, good in the ring, a lot of other circuits, wrestled all over the place. But in the 90s, they gave him some terrible gimmicks, one of them being the fat chick Thrilla. And basically, he was a wrestler who was obsessed with larger women. And come out to the ring with a couple bigger girls on each side. He loved the big ladies. Just a strange, beyond belief gimmick. But it's wrestling in the 90s. They would change his gimmick into That 70s Guy, kind of capitalizing on the popularity of the show, That 70s Show, and had him drive a little Volkswagen Bug and be totally 70s. They had a segment with the Insane Clown Posse throwing him through the windshield of the Bug, I believe. So yeah, another strange one. I don't really think of, guys who like fat chicks. I mean, we've all got that friend, but it's besides the point. I don't really think of that as a wrestler. So another strange one. We're going to go on to number 8, and that is the infamous Yeti. Now, most of you, when you think of a Yeti, don't think of this mummy-looking, toilet paper-wrapped-up guy, but they decided to call him Yeti. This was during a time when Hulk Hogan had just gone over to WCW, and they wanted him to have a batch of heel villains to face, and they're like, what better than monsters? So one of the monsters was Yeti. He debuted. He stumbled out into the ring. Clumsy guy came in and did this very awkward bear hug with the Giant, also known the Big Show, Paul Wright, against Hulk Hogan. It looks terrible, and the Yeti was very short-lived. His attire alone was just awful. They would rebrand him as like a ninja, but kept the Yeti name. Just all around terrible gimmick. No business being there, but again, wrestling in the 90s. A reason why people kind of gaffed or baffled at those who enjoyed wrestling was because of some of these wacky characters and storylines. So that is number 8, the Yeti. Number 7 is a strange one for sure. This is a team, actually. It was the Basums and Shaniqua. And it was a S&M themed group. So Shaniqua was a dominatrix, and she had her 2 submissives. The Basums, they had whips and balls and gags and all sorts of materials used in that hobby, if you want to call it that. I think their finisher, I wrote it down, was actually called the ball and gag. So yeah, very bizarre faction. She would like hit them with the whip after they'd win to celebrate. Just very bizarre. Definitely not something you'd see today. I don't know, maybe AEW would do it, but not something you'd see on WWE programming nowadays. Very strange. Yeah, we'll move on from number 7, but yeah, the Dominatrix S&M team. Hey, whatever floats your boat, I guess. Number 6 is Baston Booger. He was just a larger fellow, played by Mike Shaw. And he was basically just like a gross, fat dude who would eat food really gross, and he would smell, and sometimes he'd come out and his ring gear would be all dirty. Just kind of a gross, distasteful wrestler. Like, you don't need alright, yeah, he's fat, he eats food. Kind of just a gluttonous character. Was mostly just a jobber, but nobody wanted to see this on TV, and it didn't last long. The ring attire is just awful. So yeah, Baston Booger, yeah, not gonna terrible. Number 5 is another really bizarre, kind of controversial one. It is Beaver Cleavage. Yep, you heard that right. Beaver Cleavage was a character loosely based off the 50s show Leave It to Beaver, about a young boy who was like discovering the world or whatever. I've never really watched the show, but this character was like, he would come out with his mother, or what we thought was his mother on the show, Miss Cleavage, and there was lots of sexual innuendos, very bizarre, like hints of like incestuous comments. Very, very strange. I could see how this one didn't last very long. They decided to change it rather quickly, and they changed his name. I'm not sure exactly, but the Beaver character died, thankfully. They kept him in the relationship with Miss Cleavage, except now they revealed it's not his mom, it's his girlfriend. Terrible idea to begin with. Should have never done this one. So that is number 5. Oh, I forgot to mention, there was a segment where he got beat up or whatnot, and Miss Cleavage was telling him he needs mother's milk. Just gross, bizarre, terrible once again. Number 5. Number 4 is another infamous, controversial one, and that is Eugene. Eugene was played by Nick Dissenmore. I believe I'm saying that right. Could be wrong. Who actually holds the record for the most title reigns in Ohio Valley Wrestling. So an accomplished, skilled wrestler. And what did WWE decide to do with him? Well, they did kind of early 2000s WWE things and made him the special needs son of then Raw GM Eric Bischoff. And as you could see, this one did not age well at all. Eugene was part of many storylines. With Triple H even during his reign of terror, Triple H was his favorite wrestler. He gets portrayed there. Just kind of distasteful again. Not something most people want to see, is a guy pretending to be a special needs wrestler going out there. So again, wouldn't see this today. Absolutely not. Aged very poorly. So yeah, got to put Eugene on there. Not their brightest idea for sure. All right, and number 3 is another controversial early 2000s wrestler, and that is Kerwin White, played by Chavo Guerrero, the nephew of the great Eddie Guerrero. And basically Chavo's character as Kerwin, he would decide to disown all of his Mexican heritage and pretend to be a racist white country club guy. He would dye his hair blonde. He would drive around in a golf cart and kind of just make slurs and comments about wrestlers of other ethnicities. Again, would not fly at all today. This one is also aged terribly. It was ended by the untimely passing of Eddie Guerrero, so thankfully they did not allow this character and gimmick to continue after Eddie's passing. It should have probably never happened to begin with, but yeah. Interestingly enough, his caddy for his character was a young Dolph Ziggler, so I think that's kind of cool. Well, not cool, but you know, a little fun fact. So Kerwin White definitely wouldn't fly nowadays, and probably one of the poorer ideas that the WWE has come up with for a gimmick. All right, we are down to the final 2. So number 2 is another. This one's more infamous, not for being controversial, for just being stupid, and that is the famous Gobbly Goer. Yep, everyone's favorite Gobbly Goer. So in the months leading up to Survivor Series 1990, they were teasing this giant egg. I'll put it up there. This big egg that had something in it, and it was going to be revealed at Survivor Series. Something or someone was going to hatch. They hyped it up. It was going to be a big debut of a new wrestler, a new title. Who knows? They were asking people what they thought was in there. There was a rumor that the Playmate of the Month from Playboy was going to be in there. And then along comes Survivor Series 1990, and out comes the Gobbly Goer, who is just a man in a giant turkey costume. The crowd instantly starts booing. Mean Gene was introducing him. The commentators were laughing. Nobody took it seriously. It was a goofy, Survivor Series is in November. Let's put a turkey in there. So big turkey guy in a costume. His run didn't last long. WWE has made jokes about it in the years past. I think they've had him come back to a couple Raws around the Thanksgiving time. So just a silly, stupid character. Thankfully that night, another wrestler debuted, and that was The Undertaker at that Survivor Series. So for the down we got with the Gobbly Goer, we got the introduction of The Undertaker, who actually thought that for a little bit before his debut that he might be the Gobbly Goer. So that's a kind of funny that Mark Calloway thought that was going to be his fate. Thankfully not. And we still got The Undertaker, and we can laugh about the Gobbly Goer. All right, and number one, drum roll, whatever. Number one is probably the most infamous debut for a wrestler ever, and that is the Shockmaster. If you haven't seen the Shockmaster's debut, it's hilarious. They're hyping him up as this tag partner for the War Games that are coming up. And they introduced the Shockmaster, and what's his name? Fred Ottman plays the Shockmaster. He attempts to bust through some drywall and trips, falls on his face, and he's wearing this awful, looks like somebody took a stormtrooper helmet and covered it with glitter. So a glittery stormtrooper helmet. He busts through the wall, falls flat on his face, helmet rolls off. He gets up and tries to still cut the promo, which, Fred is not the one talking in the helmet. They have like an audio recording coming in, and the guy who's doing it has got this just awful, like, I am the Taskmaster, not Taskmaster. Taskmaster's the Marvel character or whatever. I'm the Shockmaster, ha ha ha, and he's laughing, but he starts laughing before because of the fall. Just a terrible debut. It's hilarious. You should definitely go check out the full segment of his debut. Props to Fred Ottman for doing it. He's since enjoyed laughing about it, even though it was pretty terrible. It was live TV and oh no, I screwed this up. He's had terrible gimmicks before. He was a tugboat captain. So again, wrestling in the 90s and 80s was just out of control. Weird characters. And we've moved past that, but it is fun to look back at these silly characters and whatnot. So yeah, number one, the good old Shockmaster. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed that. Let me know who you think is the worst gimmick ever. What's the worst gimmick? If I missed any, drop those as well. Thank you, and stick around if you want to see a little mashup of some of these wrestlers I put together and their silly gimmicks. So thank you, and have a good one.